Hey there, lovely Water Trio people. I'm here with my dear friends Alicia Yusuf and Kelly Surtees, and we're here delivering you all the astrology updates for the period starting March through till about the 15th. So how have you both been?
Pretty
Great.
good. Pretty good.
Awesome.
I think
we're going to...
Yes.
Sorry.
Go, Kaz.
We're just enjoying delivering these deeper insights and the new format, so we're hoping that you're enjoying it as well. And you're going to mention something, Kel?
I was going to say, I think we're recording this just after Mercury has gone retrograde, and we've all had like colds or tummy bugs, last weekend. So we're all just battling through today.
Where Mars
all
and
the phlegm.
Capricorning.
Yeah.
Mars and Capricorning our way through this retrograde. So feel free to leave us a comment below how you found this station, if it's affected your health or any other things like it's kind of have for us. So we're starting this episode, and I'm going to throw it straight over to Leash, who's going to talk to us about Mercury and what's happening there.
Yes, I'm excited about this. We've got Mercury in the last degrees of Aquarius. Sorry.
Yeah.
It is? Yes, of course.
It is. It changes signs.
It's
so Mercury
I
retro.
did know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mercury in the last degrees of Aquarius. I'm like, aren't we out of there yet? But he's sextiling Venus in Aries, and she's in the last degrees too. This is right before she moves into Taurus, which we'll be talking about soon. But it's almost, I always love these two connecting, and people don't talk about it so often because they're both so quick moving planets. But there's just this sense of they're both messengers. He's the messenger of words and of mind, and she's the messenger of love and relationships. And they're both in quite yang signs. This is why I was the one that was like, can we please do something yang? Because we've got so much yin going on in the sky right now with all the Capricorn and all the Pisces. It just feels nice to actually get something that's a little bit more lively. So it just feels like Mercury's coming up and he's retrograde still, but he's getting a chance to check in where Venus is at before she leaves Aries. So she's got an ability to speak with the loudspeaker that Mercury has of, okay, what do you really want? How are you going to express those last Venus in Aries things of what is the message for me? How am I looking after me first? What is it in relationships that I need to think about and look at before she goes into Taurus and we get all the sensual, earthy loveliness that she's going to have there? So I do love that Venus in Aries vibe, of course, and it's been nice to have her just in a bit more kick-ass mode and a bit more me mode than the usual we mode that she's in. So, yeah, I think on this day, so this is happening Thursday the 5th here in Australia. I think it'll be Wednesday the 4th everywhere else in the world. And it's just a chance to really get to speak something a little bit unusual, a little bit different, or to find a new way of working in relationships where you get to assert what you need just as much as the other person is in what they're doing too. What about you gals? What do you think of this?
Well, Cass, do you want to say something?
No, your thoughts, Kel. We love your thoughts.
Oh my God, thanks. It's a nice collaboration. We all get to share our bits and pieces. I love Mercury sextile aspects. I think it's a totally underestimated or underrated aspect. So even if you have it in your birth chart, for instance, Mercury and Venus together, there's like a talent and a sweetness. There's like a skill. It's like you can do something well, if you like. Mercury being a little bit more about like a talent or a skill or a technique, and Venus being the sweetness or the pleasantness or the doing it in such a nice way that people want more of it. And Mercury's just slipped back into Aquarius. He's finally left Pisces after more than a month there. So we will get a chance to reconnect with ideas that were maybe floating around in our brains or buzzing around in our communities or friendships back in early February, which was the last time Mercury was at the end of Aquarius. And so this Venus sextile Mercury is like a chance to resurrect something with new support that you didn't have perhaps back in early February. But I love the yang quality that you mentioned, Leash. Venus in a fire sign, Mercury in an air sign. They're both slightly slightly more outward oriented or extroverted signs. And this is going to make it easier to express things or speak about things or even get going with that project or that planning that's been a bit delayed. So I'm really looking forward to that sort of lift and that sense of movement and momentum with this aspect. What about you, Cass? I know you're our Mercury gal.
Yeah, there's just a little bit there. Yeah, I also really like this aspect too, and agree with you, Lishi, about the underratedness of it. And there's a real deal sweetener component to this. And with the Mercury retrograde, it might be this sort of stuck feeling, no, I'm not sure, particularly in Pisces, yeah, nah, yeah, no kind of situation. Then Venus comes along with all her fire and all her enthusiasm and all her, yeah, let's do the thing. And then, Mercury now just sort of dipped back into Aquarius is a lot more functional than Mercury in Pisces, then kind of goes, yeah, sure, you've talked me into it. And so this might help you to kind of come to some kind of workable deal or workable conclusion, or perhaps voice something that you couldn't quite get out when Mercury was going backwards in Pisces. But now in Aquarius, there's a little bit more dryness, a little bit more separative to it. You can maybe separate a little bit of emotion and just say the thing or do the thing that you've been meaning to do. But it doesn't have to be so forthright that it feels assertive, or so forthright that it feels perhaps combative, or, even like a little bit of aggressive. Sometimes people are afraid to speak up or say what they really want or what they really mean because they can fear saying too much or offending the other person. But this is an aspect that encourages you to do that. And then you'll get that support and that harmony through honesty. I think we've mentioned her on the podcast before, and there's a lady that's very popular on Instagram called the Holistic Psychologist, and she actually posted something today. Hang on, let me just double check my Instagram because I shared it on my own stories because it was very powerful, I thought, for kind of what's coming up. And it said, if being nice, which is Venus in Aries isn't really about being nice, means neglecting your own wants to be viewed in a positive light, it's manipulation. So that was a very interesting thought. I thought that, and this aspect can really help us to really connect with that honesty in a really mutual way that promotes, the good connections and the good communication as well.
Yeah. It's going to be a nice, fun, clarifying type of vibe to kick off this 2-week period.
Yeah, it'll really help to lift the fog of the Mercury retrograde in the Pisces component, I think.
Yes.
So that will be a nice little, almost like a little fuel injection of a bit of sweetness and action and mojo.
Because it has been a month, with Mercury in Pisces. So, Mercury was in Pisces, then it went retrograde in Pisces, and Mercury's going to move into Aquarius, change the vibe. So now going forward, we're kind of done with the Mercury retro in Pisces part of this cycle.
Yeah. So I think we get like 12 days of Mercury in Aquarius. Is that right, approximately?
Until the 16th.
Yeah. So it's a good, it's a good dose of a little bit of drying out.
Yeah, just bringing some more, more verbal into it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Sorry, Leish, you were going to say something. Cass and I are doing our beautiful lockout.
Talking about Mercury, of course we are.
And you know me, I'm the Scorpio. I don't like to take up, I have my deep, quick wisdom drops, and then I don't, you guys do all the chats. I love it. No, for me, it's the fact that as it's entering those last degrees of Aquarius and coming back into that space, it's like whatever we're reviewing there, Venus gets to bring in a bit of, I don't know, just a lightness and a chance to cut through things and dry out Mercury, because he's been in so much water.
So he kind of wet.
Exactly. So he's in the air, and then Venus is like, here, let me just, burn you with a brand, or, kind of put you next to the fire. Maybe not burn you with the brand, but put you next to the fire and warm you up and dry you out a bit. So, I guess it's a good chance to really have those thoughts and those ideas of what can I redo around Venus too. So, I feel like I'm Mercury and Pisces babbling, so I'm just going to stop.
No, I love it. I love it. I mean, this kind of rolls straight into the middle of this first week of March, though, because then the very next day, we'll have Venus change signs. So Mercury changes signs, Mercury and Venus hold hands, and then Venus changes signs. And that's kind of Wednesday, Thursday, 4th, 5th of March. So on the 5th of March is something we have all been waiting for, which is Venus moving into Taurus. And Leash, I think you're going to tell us more about that.
No, Cass.
Oh, Cass, of course.
Cass
oh, my
is
God.
the Venus in Taurus girls.
Cass is like, let me
I'm
talk about
offended.
this thing.
Don't let the Venus
my
in
God.
Scorpio talk about Venus in Taurus.
You're like, how can I be ignored? And we were talking about our Venus in Taurus foods. So tell us more, Cass, about this.
I decided I would share just a brief story about Venus and Taurus to hopefully encapsulate some of the joy and the bounty and the laziness you get to experience. So last time Venus was in Taurus was the Norwalk season of 2019. Yes. And I was in the bar, Venus likes to drink, and I got approached by the delightful Caitlin of Spear and Sundry, and she was in a...
Hang on, did you say you were in the bar? Or because I heard you were in the bath.
No, I don't do baths. I like to drink my liquids, not soak in them.
You guys are hilarious.
This is like a whole other story in my mind. Sorry. So you were at the bar.
I was probably there
with the delightful Gabe, and we were probably drinking scotch, and Caitlin came up to me, and she's in a bit of a conundrum. She'd made the Venus and Taurus series, but wanted to get it back to Ashland without it going through airport security, and there it is. And so I didn't have any clue how I was actually going to maneuver the goods, because I hadn't even worked out how I was maneuvering myself yet. So I put my hand up and said, yes, I'll be this planetary magic goods mule for you, and I'll get it down. I'll find a way, and we just wanted it to not go through the airport security. Anyway, in the X-rays.
Because of the X-ray stuff, yeah.
Yeah, so the X-rays can apparently reduce some of the planetary magic charge. So anyway, I ended up getting, at the 11th hour, because I think there was a Mercury retrograde or something at the time, maybe a Mercury-Neptune aspect, and I was having troubles with getting the Amtrak ticket to get into my inbox. And then a fellow Australian just came to the rescue with some other people, and he transported me down to Portland, where I was staying for a couple of days. And then it happened to be my Venus return. And it was totally unplanned that this happened on the day, but I got taken to the Portland Rose Garden. We got high on the beautiful smell of roses, just going through the garden, smelling, this one and this one and this one, laughing like children, smelling roses with my friend Barry. And then we spent the rest of the afternoon just chatting, talking, doing a whole lot of nothing. And then he took me to his favorite steak restaurant in Portland. So we're drinking steak and drinking wine and eating the finest and most beautiful of foods. And that was on my Venus return. So I share that story to hopefully inspire you with some of the beautiful essence of experience and nature and comfort and just pure joy. That day was filled with the roses. It was filled with beautiful food and wine, dear friends, and just that essence of just that connection and that togetherness and enjoying the simple things. And it was the most beautiful and unexpected. Of course, there's the Uranus component there, Venus return that I couldn't have planned it better. So I really do hope that some of that essence is what, even if it doesn't happen as naturally as that all unfolded, that if you can even bring a little bit more of that into your life, like nourish your body with a favorite food, or go out and buy some beautiful roses and just make your home feel a little bit more abundant and fragrant, and, that real fecund essence of Taurus, where she's just got all the fruits of everything. And this is coming into springtime in starting to get that little bit of change of seasons in the northern hemisphere a little bit. So, that's a beautiful time where those days are starting to grow a little bit longer, and you can start to see a slight shift in nature and all the good things. So As you can probably tell, I'm looking forward to Venus in Taurus. Love it. I get to kind of just, be me. But anyway, what are you girls looking forward to most about this? How do you expect it to play out? What can people look forward to with this transit?
Well, I've got some Venus in Taurus magic to share as well, because I got a bottle of Caitlin's beautiful Venus in Taurus oil, and after using it with some Venus rituals, we won a painting.
Oh,
and then,
wow.
So a beautiful, and it was commissioned. It was like we won not a painting, but a commission. Like we could commission a piece, whatever we wanted. And so I said, I love astrology and we love the beach. So she commissioned this she took it off Instagram, this beautiful picture of Joseph and I, my husband, on the beach. Like I didn't even ask for that. It was just all this amazing kind of Venus unification, of course, the backdrop of the stars, and it was so Venus in Taurus. And at the same time, people kept giving us honey.
Oh, yes, you said the honey.
Yeah. We had like 7 jars of honey given to us within a 2-week period. So, this really speaks to the sweetness and the taste of sweetness as well. I mean, there's definitely sweetness with Venus in Libra, but the sweetness of Venus in Taurus and the earthy, the groundedness, the sensualness. And, for me, I had to laugh because a lot of this came through Joseph. He was being given it at the markets and a lot of it involved him. And so my Venus is in the 8th house, but my Taurus bit's a 2nd house. So it was almost like I was getting all these lovely resources, but through my own Venus in the 8th house, which came through my husband. So it was quite an interesting play of that. But I guess, really having a look at where in your chart Taurus is and where you can bring some unification, some connection, some collaboration and cooperation, and also treat yourself. Like Venus in Taurus is like, it's about me and I'm going to look after myself and I'm going to do all the nice things, the luxury things, go on a spa date with a friend or go out and have that lovely lunch. I wish I could eat a steak with you, Cass. But yeah, doing all those, go and enjoy a cocktail or something like that, something that's just, titillating the senses. So that's my take. What about you, Kel?
Oh, you guys are doing such a great job. I'm like, where's the steak and where's the chocolate cake? But it is, Venus in Taurus, it's the only earth sign that's ruled by Venus. It's actually, it's where Venus has her most dignity in any earth sign. And so it is about the sweetness and the pleasures of the body or the material world. But Venus, of course, is also in Taurus, there's a stabilizing quality. Now, I know the first few days of Venus in Taurus, Venus will be dealing with Uranus, which isn't what we would describe as stable. But I think by the time we get into week 2 of March, when Venus has passed the conjunction to Uranus, we will see a little bit more of a finding our footing in new circumstances or with some of those unexpected changes. So the tactile, and I also think to what you were saying, I think Leash, something made me think of this idea of Venus in Taurus having standards. So Venus in Taurus, and this is something I've always appreciated about you, Cass, is you kind of know, like you don't put up with shit that other women do in certain situations, work situations or dating situations. I know a few people with Venus in Taurus and they're just so much more like, I'm not being treated well here, so I don't think I'll stay in this situation. And there's nothing egotistical about it. There's just a real sense of quality, or I know what I'm worth or what I deserve, and I won't really accept anything less than that standard. So I love...
It's a high bar.
It is a high bar, isn't it?
I feel honoured to be within that bar or above that bar.
Yeah.
But I mean, like from a romantic situation, I'm sorry, but it's a tall order. So, and this is what everybody can embrace, I think, under this influence is, if you have set your standards a little bit too low. There was a really beautiful thing, I'm referring to Instagram again, but there's a guy I follow on there. I think he refers to himself as the Matthew Hussey, and he's like a relationship guy. He's quite famous. And he said, in dating, women need to get themselves off the sales rack and start becoming the buyer, being the chooser rather than the choosee. And I think Venus in Taurus, the essence of what she brings to the table, it's like, as you said, she knows her worth and she knows her value, and she's not getting like, a second outlet stuff. She wants the best quality at the all the fine trimmings and the decadence that comes with it. So, not from a high maintenance perspective, but it's more that sense of knowing one's worth,
I deserve
knowing
more.
one's value. Yeah. And I think that is, really like more the inner self-care that Taurus is very good at doing, like knowing where the boundary is or knowing where the limit is. And sometimes it can be a little bit rigid, but it can be quite principle orientated and not really willing to budge on some core elements within, a friendship or relationship or the people that you keep company with or the food you buy or whatever it is, So there is that sort of benchmark that like an energetic minimum that Taurus holds, which done well is it's a good quality control.
Yeah, it's definitely like quality over quantity, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
So I think
remember
that just highlights. Oh, sorry, Cass.
I remember a friend of mine, she said to me a really long time ago, and she was a bit older than me, and she taught me a lot about some of the finer things in life. But one thing she always says, very simple, life's too short to drink cheap wine and eat cheap mayonnaise. And I always remember that for some reason. But I don't know why. She just really knew that sort of textiles and that quality. She was a Venus and Taurus too. Yeah.
That makes sense. Mayonnaise is such a Taurus food, right?
Slather it on. Yeah, but so that's the 4 weeks of Venus and Taurus. So it's nice to have a dignified benefic coming through.
Yeah.
With Jupiter not in great condition at the moment. So it's like we've harped on about it a little bit, but I think this is where there is some planetary juice to squeeze, and so take it for what you can and make the most of it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And it's so I think just to highlight, because Kel, you mentioned it, the Venus conjunct Uranus is at early in the morning on Monday the 9th here in Australia. So that'll be on the Sunday the 8th in the rest of the world. So it's kind of after that the goodness will really flow. So there might be some shocks or some unexpected things before that, or just a bit of friction and a bit of rubbing. So the sweetness might not. So.
So it is going to make Fridays...
Not a Scorpio.
Oh, my Lord, you too.
Well, we do have Venus opposite each other.
You guys do. Oh, my gosh. So Fridays in March are just going to have that extra special Venus vibe because we will have Venus in Taurus, one of her home signs, and Friday being the day of Venus. So if you are going to do something beautiful, like treat yourself to a massage or that extra nice bottle of wine or chocolates, or even plan a quality time experience with a loved one, whether that's a friend or a child or your romantic partner, Fridays during March and even Monday nights, which is the night of Venus, are going to have extra Venus charge this month. So, yeah, absolutely enjoy it as much as you can.
Yeah. Get your hands in the earth, get out and good for bushwalks, all those beautiful nature things too. So who's up next? Is that
for sure
you, Kel, with the full moon in Virgo?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the full moon in Virgo, because it is full moon fortnight, I guess. Full moon in Virgo. So I've got this happening Monday, March 9th at 19 degrees Virgo. I actually don't know off the top of my head when this is happening in Australia. That's the Eastern time. Is it the 10th?
3:47 a.m. here in Brisbane on the 10th.
On the 10th, right. So it'll be the night of the night that we're going to see the moon at its fullest in Virgo.
Yeah.
Now, as much as I love Pisces season, I do always enjoy the full moon in Virgo as a 48-hour window of organising and attempting to get grounded again. So the full moon in Virgo, I think, can bring some clarity about practical plans or even bring to light some of the information or details or data that has been missing or obscured or hard to locate. If you've lost a document or you're trying to find this one thing or you can't remember what you agreed to, the full moon can bring some clarity. I mean, Leisha, I know you're going to talk a little bit more about Mercury stationing direct, which is also happening around the same time. So there is this sense of things that have been stuck coming to light. I always see Virgo as having a lot to do with our physical body. Virgo is a sign that I always think represents the mind-body connection. It's an earth sign, so it's got that tactile, physical quality, but it's ruled by Mercury, which is the planet of the mind. So getting some insights about how your mindset affects what's going on in your body, or how your physical wellness affects your mindset, can be highlighted under the Virgo full moon. And because it's Virgo, I always see a new awareness around food quality and digestion and nutrition sort of popping up. So it can be a time where we're trying to make sure we're eating really good quality food, or we're just trying to get into some of those wellness rituals, in addition to doing, of course, that lovely analytical problem solving that the full moon in Virgo can really help highlight solutions for. So this is a full moon that I do look forward to each year. What about each of you gals? How are you feeling about the full moon in Virgo?
Cass?
Crickets?
I do like this one too, and I love how it is happening, within reach of Mercury's station. So there is this real sense of something coming to light, or something being illuminated, that has been part of that foggy retrograde experience. So there is this sense of drying out, or clarity, or solving a problem, or coming up with a workable solution under this full moon. So I do like it for that. And I guess because it is opposing the part of the chart that has been causing Mercury mayhem, potentially, going to the other part of that chart, maybe where you find that solace or the solution. And I think, Kel, I don't know why I'm referencing Instagram so much, but I see that that meme too that you shared today with the cat sitting in a crate, saying, if you focus on the problem, then sometimes the solution evades you. And sometimes, with the Mercury full moon or the Virgo full moon, it's to kind of like get, the problem will be spotlighted, or the solution to the problem you're trying to figure out will be spotlighted, and it's coming away from the Pisces part of your chart and into the opposing Virgo part of the chart. Might also help to give you a personal clue as to where the solution lies. So turning away from your Pisces, focus on the Virgo, and boom, you might find that little problem is solved, or that, little Mercury retrograde snafu kind of irons itself out. So there's a possibility there as well. But taking care of yourself, getting back to good sort of routines and rhythms, I think is important when Virgo's involved. It likes a bit of structure, likes a little bit of, flexible chaos. So organized chaos, I think, is a good one for Virgo. And you, Lishi, what did you think about this one?
I feel like, Pisces season always reminds me of being in a big, wide, flowing river, and you're kind of on this boat floating down, and then suddenly the full moon in Virgo happens. It's like, I'm just going to throw the anchor over here and just stop for a little while, get out of the flow, maybe sit on the side and just reevaluate where I've been for the last 2 weeks since that new moon in Pisces. What's been going on? What are the dreams that I've had? What are all the things I'm trying to create? And then how can I actually ground them? And with Pisces season looking to Jupiter in Capricorn, and this new moon also, full moon also being in an earth sign, it's like getting to reality. Let's get practical. Let's see what can actually happen. Where can we draw the line under things? So I think this will be a time where the dreams that are possible will really come into focus, and we'll just have to make some choices about what we put on the back burner, or what we let keep floating down the river and hope maybe we'll meet at the other end. But yeah, it's like kind of weighing an anchor for a while to take stock, and that polarity that always happens with the full moons, like you were talking about, Cass, the antidote lying in the opposite is the possibility of this. So yeah, if you're feeling, I always say Pisces season often needs some grounding. So this is one of those points where you can find it, because as much as going with the flow and just being is a wonderful thing, sometimes it can be too much. So yeah, there's a chance to kind of just get your feet on the ground at this point.
Totally.
Oh.
So full moon in Virgo vibes to bring some insight, and then Leish, you want to tell us more about something else?
I'm talking about, well, the fact that this full moon, and we've already talked about it a bit, the fact that this full moon is looking to that Mercury and Uranus, which is literally, it's stationing to go direct on that same day. And thank God it's stationing in Aquarius is all I can say, and it's not in Pisces. I don't know. I just find the stations in the water signs is bringing up so much phlegm. I mean, as we talked about at the beginning of the episode, there's a lot of purging, a lot of like fluids, a lot of that kind of sort of stuff. So hopefully we won't see it as much. And I always talk about the stations as a day to just be careful. The stations are always the trickiest parts of the retrograde period. So it is really lovely that we're getting to a point where it's like, okay, all the patience we've had to have, the frustrations we've been feeling are coming to an end, but it's like we just need that extra day of, right, not quite back up to speed yet. So this is a day to definitely make sure you're crossing all your I's and dotting all your T's, and just giving yourself a bit of patience and then getting ready to start going again. I think in the past, Cass, you've used that lovely analogy of, stretching the bow right back. And, this is the point where it's ready to fire. So, in Aquarius, you can be looking how high you can fire that away. And, the future visions of where you want to go as it travels back over the ground. It's been going over for the last kind of 4 weeks by this stage.
Yeah.
Thoughts on this, Cass?
So many thoughts.
Yeah.
I mean, Mercury will be sort of returning to territory that it was at the beginning of February.
Yeah.
So there is a link to this station and when Mercury got to the end of Aquarius at the beginning of February. So there is that sense of, stationing, tying up those loose ends. But there's also this little part of me that wonders, is there something connected to this station direct in Aquarius? I mean, obviously not a degree-based thing, but what also happens, which we'll talk about next week, is we also have a lot of Aquarius movement coming up. Okay, so we'll have a little bit of ingress with Saturn. There's a lot of Aquarius action happening later in the year. So perhaps this direct station may give some kind of insight or some kind of message or some type of awareness or information that maybe you can't act on just yet, but might give you a little bit of a glimpse or a window into a piece of the puzzle that might get solved a little bit later on. And you, Kel, I don't think you've mentioned this one just yet.
Oh, I mean, I don't know what I could add that's different. I agree. I like that Mercury stationing in Aquarius, not in Pisces, because I think we've had enough Mercury stationing in Pisces for a little while. As I'm just looking at my month ahead plan, I'm really getting that vibe that, Mercury's in Aquarius from the 4th of March to the 15th of March, which just gives us a chance to do a little bit more of that forward looking. When Mercury's in Pisces, it's very inward looking. It can be very emotional, very intuitive, but Mercury in Aquarius is much more about connection with community or looking outwards. And I think with the station on March 9th or 10th, if you're in Australia, there is that sense of let's move forward now. We've done a lot of maybe brainstorming or tossing ideas around, and now let's make a choice from the options or from the information we have available. And I think there almost, to me, feels like coming out of this second week in March, it's like emerging from a tunnel. We've had the full moon, we've had Mercury station. The full moon is kind of tied in a little bit to Neptune as well. And then each day after the full moon and Mercury station, it just gets a little bit clearer. Things seem to make a little bit more sense, or it starts to come together a little bit more easily. So I do think it's like forward from here, if that makes sense.
For sure. Yeah.
And it also feels
emerging.
And it feels like as well, because we've had so many Mercury retrogrades in water signs, like all of last year, this year too, but next year is when the air sign stuff happens, and it feels like all the retrogrades this year have the final station in the air sign. So these are kind of giving us some indicators of the ground that'll be gone over next year and what will be brought up in those places, because this is a time where we're actually really getting to delve dig deep in our charts when Mercury's retrograde over those particular points. It's a chance to really look at the themes of those houses, think on them, dwell on them, consider them. And so this is a sense, okay, the baton is in hand, it's changing over. Or maybe it's just me, the water signs being the hidden houses in my chart. I'm a bit over it, but digging into those places. But yeah, I'll be glad when it moves into the air signs for sure.
Totally. So, Cass.
Oh, I was just going to kind of just tangent off what you were mentioning, Leash. The elemental phases of Mercury, they kind of repeat every 6 years approximately. So we will get kind of like water retrogrades every 6 years. Then we'll get the different elements as we go. So it's the retrograde mid-year in Cancer is the only one this year that is the entirety is in a water sign. We get the air overlap later in the year of Scorpio, and then of course next year we have the air triplicity taking over the retrogrades. No, that's okay. I mean, it's just that, the Cancer retrograde is the only one that is purely Cancer. So maybe not quite as confusing as the Pisces one, but not much better. So it will be nice to have a slightly more functional Mercury retrogrades perhaps. But the water ones do tend to bring up that real subliminal and the deeper stuff that sometimes our rational mind doesn't give us the space to really process and think about so much. So they are a little bit more soulful or intuitive, which can be frustrating because Mercury doesn't really want to deal with those things. So it's a lot of stuff.
A lot. Yeah.
Yes, so many things.
So
was there anything else we wanted to cover? Yes, all of this is kind of happening, building up to that lunation as well. So there is this, as you said, Cal, like coming out of the end of the tunnel and boom, and then things just kind of, the race is over, the retrograde is done, and we can start to, take a downward slide into the month of March with all the planetary sign changes.
Totally.
Yeah. So we've talked about Instagram just a little bit. So, I mean, we don't have a Water Trio Instagram account. We probably should get on that considering we're talking about Mercury retrograde. But, if you are on Instagram and you would like to, check out all the happenings that we talk about there, on the show about Instagram, we can pop our handles down in the comments below. Did you want to plug anything that you're talking about or teaching or touring or any of your exciting happenings, Kel?
I think I'm still teaching my beginner's course that runs through till the middle of March. But because this will be the start of the month episode, I should also mention my monthly astrology subscription. So for people who want insight around every aspect each month, I do have a special members only portal where you can get special videos and resources to make sure you've got all the insights for the month ahead. So I'll put the link for that down below. What about you, Leish? What do you have coming up?
Well, two things. Firstly, with Venus in Taurus, I will be having a special offer for website subscribers on my consults. So make sure you are subscribed to my newsletter and keep an eye out for that. Also, I will be doing a webinar on relationships on Thursday, the 12th of March. This is part astrology, but it's also part just looking at psychological tools to be able to use in your relationships to just bring health and understanding into your interactions with each other. So what about you, Cass?
Myself, I'm still teaching my beginners program too. We're probably up to about week 3 now, or week 2. And later in the month, date to be announced, I will be doing a manifesting ritual under the astrological new year. Bringing in your perfected years. So all the details will be on the website for that. If you'd like to join in and sort of, get some help and advice on how to work with your perfected year and manifest what you are wanting to bring into the next astrological year. So all the dates for that will be announced really soon.
Excellent.
Cool. So I guess we've covered the first half of the month. So we hope you enjoyed that episode, and we really look forward to connecting with you in the next one. Feel free to leave us any comments, what your Mercury retrograde experiences were, what you're looking forward to about Venus and Taurus, how you want to bring more luxury into your life. And please subscribe, and that helps us get our podcast and share astrology with more people. So I guess that's a wrap for today then.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Thanks, everyone.
Gals. Thanks,
So good to
everyone.
connect with you all.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.